In Pakistan, a train derails, leaving dozens dead.
The Ministry of Railways says about 1,000 passengers were on board when the accident occurred. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Marcos administration to launch Lifeline Aid to assist poor families with their electric bills. Japan, Australia, and Canada condemn China's delinquent acts in the West Philippine Sea. Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni appoints General Hun Manet as next premier. Former U.S. President Donald Trump appeals for a new judge in election conspiracy trial. And Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg's brawl scheduled to stream on X.
As of course.
The Marcos administration is set to launch the Lifeline Rate program next month, assisting low-income households with subsidized electricity bills. Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program beneficiaries or those below the poverty threshold may apply for the program. Beneficiaries will need to submit filled-out Lifeline Rate application forms, most recent electricity bills, and any valid government-issued IDs with a signature and address of the applicant. The Lifeline Rate program will be launched in September, allowing applicants more time to register.
The Supreme Court revokes all issuances and directives of the public health emergency in compliance with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s removal of the country's COVID-19 emergency status. In court or face-to-face hearings shall be subject to the new circular issued by Court Administrator Raul Villanueva. Court judges may still require visitors to undergo antigen tests and the wearing of face masks inside their courts, but otherwise optional inside the Supreme Court and in the halls of justice. The Supreme Court reminds all judges and clerks of court to still monitor the condition of all staff members and visitors.
Renato Acosta will replace Carlos Batan as the new head of the National Printing Office, or NPO, an agency under the Presidential Communications Office. Acosta is the author of The War on Terror, How the Philippine Military and the U.S. Broke the Axis of Terror in the Philippines, and a fellow of the East-West Center, a research organization in Washington, D.C. He was also a former president of the Defense Press Corps of the Philippines and helped remove the Philippines from the priority watch list on piracy by the U.S. Trade Representative's Office.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, has successfully distributed 275 million pesos in humanitarian aid to families severely affected by the two typhoons. DSWD Social Welfare Director Michael Christopher Matay reports that the contributions came from a combination of sources, including the agency itself, local government units, and non-government organizations. He says the 275 million is being used for families to buy necessities such as medicines. A Cash for Work initiative is also being implemented. Aside from the pooled humanitarian aid, DSWD has around 2.2 billion pesos worth of food and non-food items such as family food packs, hygiene, sleeping kits, and clothing.
The Senate is due to probe the country's flooding issues on August 9. Eden Santos for the report.
The Senate Public Works Committee is expected to hear the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, officials about why the agency failed to control flooding in the country. This is despite the agency receiving a 182 billion peso budget for its flood control projects. Senators Ramon Revilla, Joel Villanueva, and Amy Marcos filed resolutions calling for an investigation to aid the legislators. Under the proposed resolution, addition, the Senate is urged to conduct an inquiry on the plans and programs of the government in order to improve the urban drainage system and flood protection of vulnerable areas of the country. According to Senator Revilla, the inquiry will ensure a comprehensive and cost-efficient solution to the flooding problems. Meanwhile, the Department of Budget and Management said it allocated 261 billion pesos for the DPWH flagship flood management program in the proposed 2024 national budget. For the last weeks, typhoons Duksuri and Canon and the southwest monsoon brought heavy rains and inundated several areas in Luzon. National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council or NDRRMC reports that 593 remain flooded, mostly in Central Luzon and Ilocos region. The agency adds that the damage to agriculture reached 2.7 billion pesos, while damages to infrastructures soared to 3.6 billion pesos. Eden Santos reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Marcos administration is set to roll out fuel subsidies to public utility vehicle operators and drivers, as well as tricycle and delivery riders. Vin Pasqua for the details.
The Department of Transportation is tasked to distribute 2.95 million pesos of fuel assistance by the government through the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB. This is to cushion the impact of consecutive weeks of increasing fuel prices. According to the Transportation Department, drivers of modern jeepneys and UV express vans will receive 10,000 pesos, while operators in other modes of transport will get 6,500 pesos. Meanwhile, tricycles and delivery riders were allotted 1,000 and 1,200 pesos respectively. This week, motorists are expecting another big-time oil price hike for the 5th consecutive week. Vin Pasqua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The 5th consecutive week of major fuel price hike is expected to take effect from August 8 to 11. Motorists will have to pay up to 4 pesos more in diesel per liter as clean fuel. PPT&C Oil will implement the increase at 6 a.m. Meanwhile, kerosene price per liter will go up by 2.75 pesos and gasoline will jump by 50 centavos per liter. Department of Energy says that the pump price hike is due to shorter oil production cycles of countries such as Russia and Saudi Arabia.
Japan, Australia, and Canada condemned the Chinese Coast Guard's actions of blocking and using water cannons against Philippine vessels in the West Philippine Sea. Madeline Villar-Moratillo tells us more.
A Philippine supply ship en route to Ayungin Shoal is seen being blocked and water cannoned by a Chinese vessel unprovoked. The Armed Forces of the Philippines criticizes the Chinese Coast Guard, or CCG, for this unlawful and excessive act alongside ambassadors to the Philippines. All 3 ambassadors from Japan, Australia, and Canada denounced the act as dangerous and destabilizing, further calling the aggression as a violation of international law. The United States and European Union also stand with the Philippines against China's aggression. Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson Commodore J. Toriela urges the CCG to be prudent and not endanger the lives of the people in such unacceptable acts. Madeline Villar-Moratillo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Secretary of Foreign Affairs summons the Chinese ambassador to answer for the blocking and water cannon incident in the West Philippine Sea.
The National Task Force on the West Philippine Sea, led by National Security Advisor Eduardo M. Año, strongly condemns the aggressive, dangerous, and unlawful actions by the Chinese Coast Guard.
Beijing continues to harass Philippine and foreign vessels in the West Philippine Sea, claiming ownership of nearly the entire sea and ignoring the 2016 International Court ruling. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. says that his administration is still awaiting a reply from Chinese Ambassador Wang Qilian. China has already issued a statement against all the evidence, calling the aggressive action as a necessary move as the Philippine ship had illegally entered their waters.
Coming up, Hun Sen's son Hun Manet is next in line for Cambodia's PM position. Ukraine replaces Russia's iconic symbol with one of their own. And former U.S. President Donald Trump wishes for a different judge to preside over his proceedings. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Pinakahihintay na pagbabalik ng pinakamasaya at pinakamahusay na sports competition ng bansa ay narito na. Mahigit 10,000 batang atletang Pilipino mula sa 17 regions ang maglalaban-laban upang ipakita ang galing ng mga batang malakas para sa bansang matatag. Palarong Pambansa 2023 Marikina. Panoorin ang mga palaro August 1 to 8, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, 2 p.m. at 12 noon, Sabado at Linggo, dito sa Net25. Brought to you by Media Partners. Net25, DZEC Radio Agila, Eagle FM 95.5. Out-of-Home Advertising Association of the Philippines. Strong Media Advertising Solutions. Globaltronics Incorporated, Mega Mobile, Manila Bulletin, Philippine Star, The Manila Times, and Manila Standard.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune said that Algeria opposes any possible military intervention in the Republic of Niger following the July 26 coup. In an interview, Tebboune urged a peaceful resolution to the ongoing political crisis in Niger. The Algerian president's remarks come after the top French diplomat Catherine Colonna backed efforts to reverse the military coup in Niger on Saturday, where the regional bloc Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, gave the coup leaders 1 week to restore constitutional order or face possible military intervention. Algeria, which shares a 950-kilometer border with Niger, has urged calm amid fears that a military confrontation could destabilize the Sahel region. Niger became the third Sahel country in less than 3 years, following neighbors Mali and Burkina Faso to be shaken by a military coup.
Niger closes its airspace due to the threat of intervention. This as the junta defies a deadline from the West African bloc ECOWAS to reinstate democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum or face possible military action. ECOWAS issued its ultimatum a week ago, demanding the generals to relinquish power by midnight Sunday. Shortly before the deadline passed, the junta released a statement, and it reads, "Faced with the threat of intervention, which is becoming clearer through the preparation of neighboring countries, Niger's airspace is closed from this day on Sunday for all aircraft until further notice." It warns that any attempt to violate the country's airspace would meet an energetic and immediate response. Bazoum was overthrown on July 26 when members of his own guard detained him at the presidency. According to the flight tracking website Flight Radar 24, early Monday, there were no aircraft operating in Niger's skies. In a separate statement, the now ruling National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, or CNSP, says there had been a pre-deployment in preparation for the intervention made by 2 Central African countries. The statement did not name them. It further warns any state involved will be considered co-belligerent. Thousands of coup supporters had gathered Sunday in the capital Niamey to cheer on CNSP. at the 30,000-seat Seni Conche Stadium, named after Niger's first coup d'etat leader in 1974. CNSP leaders, including General Mohamed Tumba, greeted a jubilant crowd. The venue was draped in Russian flags, and supporters carried portraits of CNSP leaders.
Thailand's Move Forward party has urged Pheu Thai to reverse its decision to end the political alliance initially forged to counter Thailand ruling military-backed administration. In a Facebook post intended for Pheu Thai, MFP's Owiroy Lakanadisorn warned Pheu Thai that the Conservatives have been looking into a way to divide the newly formed coalition government ever since they lost the majority in Thailand's general election. The post reads, "Don't ever get in the car with them. They will trick you to traveling to the mountaintop where you will eventually be gunned down." When the MFP and Pheu Thai were together in the 8-party alliance, they together had 312 MP seats in hand, while the Conservative camp only has 188 MPs. Counting all together only the number of MFP and Pheu Thai MPs, the total number of MPs the two parties had together still was as high as 292, meaning they would have a better chance to win over a prime minister vote. Mr. Guiroy said he believed Pheu Thai must have been offered a persuasive deal before they decided to go their own way.
ก้าวไกลนี่ยอมรับนับถือเขาเลยคือเขาเป็นผู้เสียสละเขาถอยจนสุดแล้วแต่ฝั่งนี้เขาก็ไม่ยอมพูดง่ายเขาจะร่วมมือกับเผด็จการซึ่งเขาไม่เห็นหัวเราอยู่แล้ว
That leaves the door open for the Palang Pracharat Party, or the PPRP, and the United Thai Nation Party, UTN, to become a part of the Pheu Thai-led coalition, particularly over the influence they hold over the senators. This means that in the best-case scenario, even if Pheu Thai succeeds in forming the new coalition, it would only play a supporting role to the ruling conservative camp already seated in the Thai government.
ที่การตรวจสอบการทำวินิจฉัยขอใช้โอกาสนี้ในการทำลายมาตรฐานตลอดจะเพิ่มมาแล้วก็ขอฝากเพื่อนๆสมาชิกในการใช้มาตรฐานในการดูแลพี่น้องประชาชนผมเชื่อว่าประเทศไทยจะไม่มีเลยนะครับในวันที่4พฤษภาคม
Hun Manet, the eldest son of Cambodia's long-term ruler, has been endorsed as the country's next premier. Cambodia's king issued a decree stating Hun Manet will succeed Hun Sen, who has been Cambodia's acting leader for 38 years. However, days after Hun Sen's election win, he announced that he would step down and pass over the seat to his son. Cambodian King Norodom Sihamoni issued a royal decree after Hun Sen sent a formal letter requesting an official notice over the matter. Hun Manet, 45, who until recently was the commander of the Royal Cambodian Army, has long been groomed for the leadership role.
ខ្ញុំសូមអរគុណចំពោះការគ្រប់គ្រងទាំងឡាយដែលផ្ដល់ឱកាសឲ្យបណ្ឌិតហ៊ុនម៉ាណែតคล้ายទៅជានាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីនៅពេលខាងមុខ
His appointment still needs to be confirmed by Parliament, but given the absence of any significant opposition in the Cambodian Parliament, his win is more or less guaranteed. Hun Manet's new cabinet is expected to include younger faces, since many of the men who rose with Hun Sen through the Khmer Rouge Revolution and civil war of the 1970s and the 80s have already stepped down.
សិទ្ធិរបស់កូនខ្ញុំមិនឲ្យកាន់តំណែងជានាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីទេបើសិនបើហ៊ុនម៉ាណែតគ្រោះថ្នាក់ដល់ជីវិតខ្ញុំត្រូវត្រឡប់មកធ្វើនាយករដ្ឋមន្ត្រីមួយរយៈ
The Nagasaki A-bomb anniversary will take place indoors instead of the Nagasaki Peace Park due to the incoming severe tropical storm. It will be the first time in 60 years that the ceremony will be held indoors at a convention center. Nagasaki city officials also announced that the survivors and bereaved family members of the bombing will not attend. Prime Minister Kishida Fumio and foreign ambassadors will also not be able to join the ceremony. Nagasaki Mayor Suzuki Shiro says that ensuring the safety of the participants is their top priority.
Former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan is sent to a high-security prison after a court sentences him to 3 years in jail for corruption. Khan faces 150 legal cases since his removal from office, including charges on corruption and inciting violence, alluding to the deadly protests when his followers attacked government and military property across the country. The court has already ruled that Khan had concealed assets from selling state gifts and quickly mobilized police to arrest him, subsequently transferring him to a prison notorious for harsh conditions. Khan's lawyers have been denied access to his prison, but continue to file petitions to challenge his sentencing. Khan is the seventh former prime minister to be arrested in Pakistan.
India's main opposition leader Rahul Gandhi was restored to parliament after the Supreme Court suspended his defamation conviction over comments criticizing Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In a statement, Gandhi's disqualification has ceased to operate subject to further judicial pronouncements. The 53-year-old Gandhi was sentenced to 2 years in prison last March in a case that critics flagged as an effort to stifle political opposition in the world's largest democracy. The conviction stemmed from a remark made during the 2019 election campaign when Gandhi had asked why all thieves have Modi as their common surname. His comments were portrayed as a slur against the Prime Minister and all those with the same surname, which is associated with the lower rungs of India's caste system. India's top court suspended Gandhi's defamation conviction and said the initial trial had failed to justify imposing the maximum sentence for his campaign rally comments 4 years ago.
Ethnic clashes in India's northeastern state of Manipur have led to more than 150 casualties and 50,000 displaced residents over the past few months. One question plaguing the region has been what Prime Minister Narendra Modi has planned to quell the issues of these people. His social media account suggests that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is locking in high-value government contracts and frequently meeting with foreign leaders as a newly established Asian powerhouse, but he has been relatively modest about weighing in on the issue. The strongman leader has been absent on arguably the first ethnic or the worst ethnic violence ever seen in the remote state, where his Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party or BJP is in power. Now, Modi is now facing a vote of no confidence against him in parliament. He is most likely to come out of this unscathed, but it is highly indicative of the cracks within the ranks of the Indian parliament. The newly formed India Alliance, comprising 26 opposition parties, has been pushing for a statement from Modi on Manipur in parliament since its session began last month. They have also called for the firing of Biren Singh, Manipur's top elected official in Manipur and a member of Modi's party, and to impose a rule that would bring the state under direct federal control.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited several major arms factories, including facilities producing engines for strategic cruise missiles. The inspection of the factories comes less than 2 weeks after Kim attended a major military parade with Russian and Chinese officials. During the engine factory visit, Kim called for increased weapons production, where he also highlighted the modernization of small arms as the most important and urgent matter in making war preparations. The inspections come as South Korea and the United States prepare for major joint military drills later this month. North Korea views such exercises as rehearsals for an invasion and has repeatedly warned it would take overwhelming action in response.
Ukraine's presidential office organizes an international conference with more than 40 countries and international organizations discussing a 10-point peace proposal.
До речі, завтра в Джиді, в Саудівській Аравії, почнеться зустріч радників голів держав та представників МЗС щодо формули миру. Багато країн будуть представлені, різні континенти, зокрема і держави глобального півдня. Це дуже важливо, бо в таких питаннях, як продовольча безпека, доля мільйонів людей в Африці, в Азії, в інших частинах світу прямо залежить від того, наскільки швидким буде світ в реалізації формули миру.
Participants include the group of 7 nations of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States, among other countries and organizations. China also joined the conference for the first time. The discussion includes a withdrawal of Russian forces and restoration of Ukrainian territory, with the head of Ukraine's presidential office stating that the meeting went productively but provided no details. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov says that the participation of the BRICS members could be beneficial for the West and to understand Russia's side despite Russia's absence.
Ukraine installs a national trident on the 62-meter tall monument in Kyiv, replacing the Soviet Union's hammer and sickle symbol. The Soviet Union coat of arms were removed late July, and they began installing the trident early August, indicating a cultural shift from the Soviet Union and the present Russia's influence to a more national identity. The monument is set to be renamed Mother Ukraine. Ukraine attacks one of the roads linking Crimea and Russian-controlled Ukraine, damaging a gas pipeline and wounding a civilian. The Ukrainian army also bombards a university in the Donetsk region, resulting in 1 civilian dead. A 2-day peace summit in Saudi Arabia ends without any results from Ukraine, despite the chief of staff to Zelensky saying that it was a productive meeting. Russia did not attend and called the meeting a propaganda to rally developing nations to back Ukraine.
Over the weekend, the war between Russia and Ukraine continues as Russia carried out several waves of attacks on Ukraine, while Kyiv hit bridges in occupied territories. On Saturday, Ukraine said Russian forces had struck a blood transfusion center in the Kharkiv region of northeast Ukraine. The reported strike came shortly after President Zelensky said Russian missiles had hit a facility of the Ukrainian aeronautics group Motor Sich. On Sunday, meanwhile, the Ukrainian Air Force said that it shot down 30 out of the 40 cruise missiles and all Shahed drones launched by Russia. The Ukrainian armed forces did not specify which sites were hit by the missiles that got through air defenses, where several buildings were damaged. Russian air defenses were also at work on Sunday as Ukraine targeted 2 bridges in occupied territory. A separate attack on a bridge near Genichesk in southern Kherson wounded a civilian and damaged a gas pipeline, cutting supplies for about 20,000 residents.
The Supreme Court in Venezuela ordered the immediate removal of Red Cross chief Mario Enrique Villarroel, who had led the charity for 45 years. It accused Villarroel of harassment and ill treatment of the charity's employees. Also behind his removal was politician Diosdado Cabello, the number 2 leader of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela of President Nicolas Maduro. Cabello accused Villarroel of conspiring against Maduro with a mafia-style activity in the handling of the group's budget. Installed to replace Villarroel was Ricardo Casano, former head of the nation's main business union, Fede Cámaras.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump says he will petition to have a different judge oversee his historic criminal trial. He also plans to petition for the case to be moved out of Washington. Anna Kui reports.
Twice impeached Donald Trump posts on his Truth Social platform that there is no way he can get a fair trial with the judge assigned to the ridiculous freedom of speech/fair elections case. Trump writes in capital letters, "Everybody knows this, and so does she." U.S. District Court Judge Tanya Chutkan was randomly assigned to the case in Washington. Trump is facing charges over attempts to overturn the 2020 election results and defraud the United States. He says they will be immediately asking for recusal of Chutkan on very powerful grounds. Trump says they will also ask for venue change out of Washington. He describes Washington as a majority Black city that leans heavily Democratic. His lawyer, John Lauro, however, denies that any final decision had been made. Lauro confirms they would be seeking a change of venue, but only after some polling and quantitative analysis. This in terms of how people are reacting to the indictment. 61-year-old Chutkan is one of a dozen judges on the Washington Federal District Court bench. She was an appointee of former President Barack Obama. Her nomination to her post in 2014 was approved unanimously by the Senate. Chutkan has a legal history with Trump. She ruled against him in a November 2021 case in which she notably declared that presidents are not kings. She has handed down lengthy sentences to Trump supporters who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6 of that year. She has rebuffed the Trump legal team's recent demands. On Saturday, she denied their motion to extend a deadline for responding to the U.S. government's protective order request that could limit what Trump and his lawyers can share publicly about his case. Anna Cui from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, Kai Cenat causes a riot to break out in New York City. A train derailment in Pakistan causes dozens of casualties. And violence in Ethiopia disrupts humanitarian operations. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break. Don't go away.
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders.
Ang pinakahihintay na pagbabalik ng pinakamasaya at pinakamahusay na sports competition ng bansa ay narito na. Mahigit 10,000 batang atletang Pilipino mula sa 17 regions ang maglalaban-laban upang ipakita ang galing ng mga batang malakas para sa bansang matatag. Palarong Pambansa 2023 Marikina. Panoorin ang mga palaro August 1 to 8, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, 2 p.m. at 12 noon, Sabado at Linggo, dito sa Net25. Presented by Biogenic Alcohol, Skechers, and Net25. Co-presented by Mr. DIY, Rebisco Extreme Choco Sandwich, and in part by Memo Plus Gold, Alaska Milk, Angkas, BPI, and Cal Cheese.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. In China, a magnitude 5.4 earthquake struck Dezhou City in Shandong Province. According to the United States Geological Survey, the epicenter was found 10 kilometers beneath the surface. State media says at least 21 people sustained injuries and dozens of buildings collapsed. Authorities say the quake was also felt as far away as Beijing, Tianjin, and Shanghai. Meanwhile, China's Ministry of Emergency Management launched a level 4 emergency response measure and sent a team to Shandong Province.
In Pakistan, the textile industry is left at the tail end of the coronavirus pandemic as exports fell by 15%, valued at around $16.5 billion between 2022 to 2023. Data shows that the textile and clothing sector employs about 40% of Pakistan's 20 million industrial workforce.
We estimate that maybe we've lost 700,000 jobs in the past year and a half. So it's not a very happy state of affairs. Some companies may do all right or may do well or may manage to keep their heads above water, but by and large, the industry is in a bad shape.
Pakistan's main export markets are the United States, European Union, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates, supplying cotton fabrics, knitwear, red linen, towels, and ready-made garments. But after devastating floods in the summer of 2022, cotton production in Pakistan fell drastically low. Sources say thousands of containers filled with raw materials and machinery vital for the country's industries were held up for months in Karachi. Meanwhile, textile companies also projected the cost of capital increased significantly, contesting with interest rates of more than 20% as the country's central bank sought to lower record-breaking inflation.
Pandemonium broke out in New York City last Friday as thousands gathered the promise of free gaming consoles. It started with a posting on Instagram from social media influencer Kai Senat. Rosel Feria has more.
The 21-year-old called on his millions of fans to meet him in Lower Manhattan for a live streaming event. He said he would have free gifts. Among the giveaways were supposed to be video gaming consoles. Authorities say the crowd grew exponentially. The gathering soon turned into a riot, with young men throwing objects from a nearby construction site. Some carried axes and shovels. Rioters smashed cars, blocked vehicles, and congested city streets. Police say they arrested 65 people, including 30 juveniles. At least 4 people were taken away in ambulances. Senat has been charged with at least 2 counts of inciting a riot and unlawful assembly. Authorities say the event was unpermitted and not sanctioned. An NYPD official said they do believe there were a handful of gaming consoles that the influencer intended to distribute. He added the event would likely have turned out differently had he notified the department ahead of time. Rosel Feria for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In Brazil, a fugitive fleeing the police in the town of Itabira found an unusual escape route this weekend. He climbed to the top of an electric pole and stayed there for nearly 24 hours. Kimi Oria has the details.
Police in the southeastern state of Minas Gerais arrived to arrest the 38-year-old convict Friday for violating his parole. Officials say the fugitive made a run for it. He climbed onto the roof of his house. From there, he scaled a 10-meter or 33-foot utility pole. He remained atop the pole for nearly a whole day. That was from Friday until Saturday afternoon. A local newspaper reports the man refused to come down. He, however, eventually gave himself up. He was then brought to a hospital for medical checks before being retaken into custody by the police. Utility company Cemig says the incident had forced it to cut power to around 380 clients in the area for more than a day. The man's criminal record includes armed robbery and theft charges. Kimi Oria for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In Venezuela, the non-government organization known as Vivarium Foundation offers educational talks and operates a hotline for snakebite victims. During phone calls, Vivarium asks questions that rule out false alarms before activating its protocol, which serves as a bridge with health authorities, doctor consultations, and locating hospitals with antivenom.
La llamada es recibida en la fundación. Ahí activamos los protocolos, tratamos de contactarnos con los médicos en la zona, ya sean epidemiólogos o toxicólogos, que nos han apoyado en estos 20 meses que tenemos de actividad full con esta.
The organization notes that the most common inquiries encountered is where to get antivenom. Authorities say antivenom is produced by only one laboratory in Caracas, while it is scarce in public hospitals. A kit of 5 ampules in pharmacies can reach up to $500. However, in more serious cases, further doses are required.
La intención principal es que podamos ser parte de la solución, no del problema. Que las personas logren conseguir el suero lo más pronto posible. Que ese tiempo entre la mordedura y la aplicación sea lo más corto posible.
According to Vivarium, the NGO received over 700 calls in 2022. The World Health Organization estimates that about 5.4 million people are bitten by snakes annually, resulting in 80,000 to 130,000 deaths, mostly centered around Asia, Africa, and Latin America.
A Pakistan train derails, leaving at least 30 dead. Several carriages of a Hazara Express train derailed near the Sahara Railway. According to the Ministry of Railways, about 1,000 passengers were aboard the train when it derailed on a section of track. Police report about 30 bodies were recovered, while more than 90 people sustained injuries. Authorities say the death toll could rise as the rescue operation continues. The Hazara Express is a daily passenger train that travels from Karachi in the south to reach Havelian in the north.
Now another tragedy, a minibus plunged into a ravine on Sunday in Morocco. The road accident, and now the country's worst ever, killed all 24 people on board. Bernadette Ragini tells us more.
The passengers of the minibus were traveling a mountainous route to a weekly market in the town of Demnate. The town is in the central province of Agila. Local authorities say the minibus overturned on a bend. Images on public broadcaster 2M show the vehicle crushed at the bottom of the ravine. The director of the Demnate Hospital, Youssef Makhloufi, confirmed on 2M that all the passengers are dead. Reports say at least 2 women and a child were among the victims. An investigation has already begun. A local NGO worker says the minibus did not have a license. The worker says this is a problem that affects the residents of mountain regions, particularly in Azilil province. He says the fatalities were all from the town of Ayit Tamlil in the High Atlas Mountains south of Demnate. According to the National Road Safety Agency, an average of 3,500 road deaths and 12,000 injuries are recorded annually in Morocco. This is an average of 10 deaths per day. The figure last year was around 3,200. Bernadette Regini from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The World Health Organization says ongoing violence in Ethiopia's Amhara is affecting humanitarian operations there. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus is urging uninterrupted access to the northern region. This following clashes between local fighters and federal troops. Arlene Ocampo tells us more.
WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who hails from Ethiopia, posts on X that humanitarian access in Amhara is difficult due to blockage of roads and communication is difficult due to internet suspension. He is calling for uninterrupted access and protection of healthcare in the region. This so WHO and its partners can continue their work. He says, above all, they are calling for peace. The fresh unrest in Africa's second most populous country comes just 9 months after the end of a devastating 2-year war in the neighboring region of Tigray. That war also drew in fighters from Amhara. On Friday, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government declared a 6-month state of emergency in Amhara. Authorities later announced that they had arrested people responsible for the security crisis in the region. Tensions have been rising since April, when the federal government announced it was dismantling regional forces across Ethiopia. The announcement triggered protests by Amhara nationalists who said the move would weaken their region. Clashes have escalated in recent weeks. These have prompted travel warnings from foreign governments and the grounding of flights. Residents of several towns in Amhara say fighters from the local militia, Fano, were facing off against federal forces. Arlene Ocampo for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Throughout August, the City of Toronto in Canada will commemorate Emancipation Month with activities that include the Underground Freedom Train Ride, Black Liberation Flag raising, music, and poetry. Chantel Santos tells us more.
August is recognized as Emancipation Month in the City of Toronto, celebrating the rich contributions made by the peoples of African descent to the city and country. The Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 came into effect on August 1, 1834, emancipating more than 800,000 enslaved Africans in the British Empire, including Canada. One of the many events to commemorate Emancipation Month is the Underground Freedom Train Ride held on July 31st in collaboration with the Toronto Transit Commission. The Freedom Train runs from University Line to Shepherd West Station. A special event will be at the end of this nonstop ride, which includes singing, poetry readings, drumming, and a reflection of the dangerous journey that former enslaved people had to face to reach their freedom. The Black Liberation Flag will be raised at City Hall and other civic centers across the city. The Toronto sign will also be illuminated in the Pan-African colors of red, black, and green. More activities will be held across the city throughout the month to support the community and confront anti-Black racism. In Toronto, Ontario, Chantal Santos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg to be streamed live on X, formerly known as Twitter. Messi magic in Miami continues with a shootout against Dallas. And Greta Gerwig's Barbie movie reaches $1 billion at the box office. Catch more news in business, tech, sports, and entertainment when we return.
Abangan sa Counterpoint, kikilalanin natin ang taong punong abala upang makamit ang target ng Administrasyong Marcos na 1 milyong housing unit taon-taon upang makamit ang 6.5 milyong unit na backlog ng pamahalaan.
Slogan po namin ni Presidente na wala pong Pilipino na walang bahay sa sariling bayan. Basta ikaw po ay may trabaho, dapat may bahay.
Ngayong Miyerkules alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito lang sa Net 25. Wala pa hong demanda, tinuturo mo na. Nauna ho yung conclusion. Wala pa yung predicate, wala pang basis, nagsalita na.
Tech tycoon Elon Musk announces that a cage match with Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg will be carried out live on X, formerly known as Twitter. This is after Musk posted on the challenge on X, noting that the proceeds from the brawl will go to charity for veterans. Zuckerberg soon responded using Threads, the new app he launched a month ago, questioning the reliability of X as a platform that can generate money for charity. The exchange sparked a wave of reactions on social media. The two entrepreneurs have yet to announce a date for the fight. Sources say if it does happen, it is projected to take place in Las Vegas. Over the years, the two tech giants have clashed concerning areas of politics to artificial intelligence. A moratorium under the United States Commercial Space Launch Act of 2004 is set to expire this October. Also known as a learning period in the aviation industry, this regulates safety for people flying on commercial aircraft. The moratorium is only limited to human spaceflight, which is done by SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic. The House Science Committee is considering a commercial space bill that might extend the moratorium, but the contents have yet to be revealed to the public. Meanwhile, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration is preparing for the possibility that the moratorium will end soon. The Aviation Administration has established a space aerospace rulemaking committee to look into different options for regulations.
Inter Miami star Lionel Messi scored twice as he led Inter Miami advance past FC Dallas to the quarterfinals of the League's Cup on penalties after an enthralling 4-4 draw. This after Messi has scored 2 goals, including a curling free kick trademark to tie the game at 4-4 in the 85th minute. From there, Miami won the shootout 5-4 as the league does not feature extra time with drawn games going directly to penalties. It was a comeback game to remember for Inter Miami as they were down 3-1 before the Messi magic begun at the 67th minute of the game. With the feat, Miami improves to 4-0 since Messi joined the team in June, where they will face the winner between Charlotte FC and the Houston Dynamo in the League's Cup quarterfinals. Still on football, Sweden has ended the United States' long reign as the Women's World Cup holders. This after Sweden sealed the deal with a 5-4 on sudden death penalties. Sweden will next face Japan, who have been the sensation of the tournament so far. Meanwhile, the last 16 defeat after the game ended 0-0 after 120 minutes was the United States' earliest exit in their Women's World Cup history. Megan Rapinoe, a two-time World Cup winner who was desperate to end her career with another title, missed her spot kick before the Swedes sealed the deal. The USA have long been the dominant force in international women's football, where they have won the World Cup 4 times and were chasing an unprecedented third title in a row. Miguel Arcangel Cruz, a 16-year-old Filipino amateur shooter, bagged a bronze medal in the recently concluded 5th World Rimfire and Air Rifle Benches Championship last July 26 to August 3, 2023 at Pilsen, Czech Republic. Cruz competed in the rimfire heavy rifle category against other benches rifle competitors from 23 other countries with 237 shooters. Miguel is a member of a 10-man Philippine delegation from the Philippine National Shooting Association, or PNSA. Cruz underwent a 3-month amateur shooting training under the tutelage of Coach Jimmy Maniwang and was supervised by Delia Kidato, both from the PNSA. Miguel is a senior high school student at the University of Asia and the Pacific in Pasig City.
I didn't really think I was enough when I went in this competition, but you know, I just have fun when you're doing what you want to do.
In our count after his event, he was number 4, but the number 3 was with a different group, which was the European Championship. She has a world. So we didn't expect that, you know. And then when the final ceremonies came, they were looking for him for his medal. He went up to his room, so we had to call him back. Yeah, he's a very surprising shooter natin because less than a year siya nagpa-practice for our event. He has background in shooting, but for our event, the bench rest rifles, it's his first international competition.
Warner Bros. Announces that Barbie has hit $1 billion in ticket sales at the global box office just 17 days after it was released. Warner Bros. Is calling it the Barbillion, with director Greta Gerwig becoming the first woman to achieve such a milestone as a solo director. Starring Margot Robbie as Barbie and Ryan Gosling as Ken, the film has grossed $459 million in the U.S. and $572 million internationally. With its astounding box office success, toy company Mattel is hoping to repeat the same success with other Mattel brands, such as Barney, Hot Wheels, and Polly Pocket, which are set to appear in upcoming movies.
Canines ride waves at the World Dog Surfing Championships in Pacifica, California. During the event, participating dogs are trained to surf along the waves as part of the competition. The hounds are arranged according to size, from small to medium and large to very large. There is also a sub-event of the tandem dog as well as a tandem human to dogs, with owners surfing their pups on the board. According to organizers, the participants are judged on technique, confidence, and length of ride. The event is promoted as the premier dog surfing event in the world and is annually held since 2006.
I love to surf, so I would love to bring my
take
dogs.
your dogs?
I would love
be
to bring them
exciting
with
to
me.
see.
Yeah.
That'd be something to see.
Maybe we can train for that competition.
Right. I'll bring my cats though. Will cats pass?
We'll
find out.
Give it a go.
And to start your week, here's a quote from American author and motivational speaker Leo Buscaglia. Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around.
I'm sure you remember meeting people you look up to and just remembering the little things that they've done that really showed their kindness.
Oh, definitely. And it's been said that you have to be kind to other people because you don't know their battles. You don't know what they're going through at the moment.
Yes, and that could be a big thing for them, just to give them that smile, that pat on the back, or that hug.
And it doesn't take a lot of effort to be
Really
kind
doesn't.
or to smile at other people. And it can make their day.
So that's something you can think about, not just this Monday, but for the rest of the week.
For the rest of the week.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.